So everyone just find your moment again. Just ensure you're present. You know, the more you are grounded, the more you are present. You see, I'm speaking from the present moment. And me sitting in this chair, it's easier for me to be present than it is for you because I've got no choice to be present. If I'm not present, then we're not going to be speaking. There's nothing going to be coming out. Does that make sense? Yeah. So I've got no choice. It's a great thing having no choice because there's only one choice then, and that is to be present or to not. But you have a choice. You could doze off. You can start going onto there and just pretend you're present, and that's the danger for you. You want to be really present because when I'm speaking from the present moment, you will feel what's being said in you, and you don't need to understand it then. If you don't feel it in you, then you try to understand it, and then you can't understand it. And then you go out there and you're like, oh, I thought I got it. And you won't be able to live it. So be really present, and don't try to be present. Just because I can see sometimes in someone's face, they're really trying to be present. Being present is a choice. It's a choice of being nowhere else, but here, because the here is all there is. That's all. When you're trying not to be anywhere, when you have the understanding of being nowhere else, then you'll be here. But then if you have all these options of being elsewhere, then you're trying to be present. Because you're like, well, I could be thinking about what's going on with my relationship right now. I could be thinking about what's going on with my finances. I could be thinking about if it's a sunny day out. You know, there's so many things. You've given yourself an option. But when there's no option, you know, be nowhere else but be here. If you choose to be nowhere else, you will be here. If you give yourself options of being elsewhere, then you have to try to be present. And you're like, you look constipated when I look at your face. And really, you know, last month was about love, and there was a lot of presence that came into that. But really, that's what, you know, this month falls into as well. You know, the reflection. The reason you're experiencing a reflection of your disowned part is because you're not here. Because when you're here, you're experiencing yourself. And we spoke about this last month. We said there's the present, there's the present moment, which has the present moment is part of the story. The story has the past, future, and in the middle has the present moment. Okay? But then there is the only moment, the now. It's something deeper. You see, in the now is the one moment, one energy. Just to refresh our memory from last month. The present moment still has a past and future. In other words, there's still a little bit of a shadow. Okay? When there's no shadow is when you and the moment have become one. That's when you're experiencing oneness. That's when you're experiencing infinity. That's how you live as your infinite self. That's when there's no disowned parts. That's when you're experiencing in your reflection a direct reflection. No more indirect reflections, which is a reflection of your disowned parts, the things you don't want, the things you do want. You're continuously reflecting that. And you're continuously chasing the shadow. It's never ending. However, not everyone has the capacity to be present all the time, because a little wave comes and knocks your boat over. You know, life, you know, the thing is when you're present, life still happens. You know, I talk about this in the WTF. I say the more you get closer to your seesaw, it's like when you're sitting on the seesaw, when you're at the edge of the seesaw, it goes up and down, up and down. The further away you are on the seesaw, the greater the up and down. The closer you are to your center, where there's no shadow, there's no up and down. But the up and down still happens. In other words, life still takes place. Life still happens. But you're no longer moving up and down. The deeper you drop into the ocean, the calmer and stiller it becomes. The more you go into the void and go kilometers and kilometers deep into the ocean, the stiller it becomes. On the surface, there may be a tsunami. There may be rough weather. But you're not moved. But when you're living on the surface, then a little ripple will knock you over. It's like you have a little paper boat. You know, when you're a kid, you used to make the paper boat and put them on the thing. You know, a little ripple would just go, knock it over. So all it has to do is being present. But as you expand your awareness of your expanded self, as you become more and more aware of how expanded you are, you have more and more capacity to stay in the present moment. There's only moments where you go out of the present moment. Something big maybe just knocked you out, and then you bring yourself back into the present moment. And when you are in the present moment, that's when you are standing directly in front of the mirror. You're no longer standing indirectly in front of the mirror and not seeing yourself, you're seeing someone else and going, well, that's not me, that's someone else. That's not me. So a direct reflection is when you're standing directly in front of the mirror and you see yourself in someone else. So let me give you some examples of that. Okay, you would have experiences of this with other people. Okay, it is an experience of love. It is an experience where you're experiencing your reflection in non-attachment, with no ego, no agenda. It's just a complete, direct reflection. Okay. So once you have owned the part of yourself that is disowned, it aligns. It's an indirect reflection at first, okay, because it's a disowned part. You do not see that part in yourself. But once you own that, or whichever one comes first, once you find the moment, you'll notice that what you're reflecting changes. You will reflect, and this is just not in people, because I know as I'm speaking you're thinking about people. This is in your circumstances. This is in your financial circumstances, in your health, in your well-being. This is in the environment you live in, your lifestyle. Everything's a reflection. Once you've found yourself in the moment, or once you've owned the part of yourself that you disowned, whichever one comes first, you find yourself standing directly in you directly reflect yourself into the story. But when I say yourself, I'm saying what feels true for you. So I don't want to say your complete self, because it's not your complete yet. Okay? The direct reflection is when you see yourself in something else. It's a direct reflection. It may be a conversation with somebody you're having. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine in the US. And, you know, it's not many people that I get to talk to about the journey that I've been on to get to this point, you know. And this is a good friend of mine who I catch up with once in a while when I'm in the US. His name's Oren Harris. And Oren and I were having a conversation, and as we were having a conversation, we started to see so many similarities in our paths. You know, it's like he goes, I got to a point when I was like I was telling him I got to a point where I no longer felt speaking, no longer felt to speak. And he's like, oh yeah, and I started to tell him about it, and then he's like, that's seriously interesting, because I got to a point where I no longer felt to do this, this, and this, and I stopped doing my coaching and da-da-da-da, and I was like, when did that happen for you? And he goes, 2 months ago. I go, that's when it happened for me. It was like a direct reflection, and there were so many little signposts that would continuously, and I was like, 7 years ago, this happened to me. He goes, that's what happened to me on the path 7 years ago. And it was like a complete direct reflection. So what happened, as I kept seeing more reflections of myself, I started to see myself in him. Do you understand? You start to see yourself in the other. And he, listen to this, he would then see himself in me. If I, for example, let's give you another example, I'm in a relationship, for example. If I say to the person, I love you, right? Because, you know, and I think to myself, I feel like I see myself in the other person, right? If my reflection says, I don't feel the same, then that's not a direct reflection. You will get the direct reflection back. Just in case your ego takes this information and starts running with it, this is a direct reflection. You know, you may go up to someone and go, I love you, right? If they go, well, I don't feel the same, then you're like, you must, because I'm having my reflection in you. It's not, okay? That is an indirect reflection. Okay? You love a part of yourself that you see in them, maybe, but you don't love the other part of them that's showing up. You know, I spoke to someone very recently about this. You know, they loved a part of themselves. They would see this, but then they would go, I love them. But there was this other part they didn't love. And they were like, I wish they could get this other thing. I was like, see, you don't. You don't, that's not a direct love. You only love a part of themselves. You love a part of this person. If it was, I love this person, the whole person, right? Which really means you've become whole, right? Which is the complete love, which we'll talk about later on. If that's the case, that person will reciprocate exactly the same thing. And it feels like you see yourself in the other person. Has anyone ever experienced something like this? I can only give you references of this. Okay? Okay, forget about a relationship. All right? Let's talk about something else. I'm trying to give you as many references of this as I can, because there is moments where you have had a direct reflection. It could be with a sunset. I remember once I was in, where was I? In Los Angeles. I was, where is it, in Orange County? What's that beach called? Laguna Beach. I was in Laguna Beach, and there was a friend of mine driving, and for some reason there was this beautiful sunset, and I've never felt like this. I was like, stop, you just got to stop. I've got to go and sit with this sunset. And they're like, yeah, but we got to keep, and I just stopped. So they pulled over, and I went and stopped, and I sat in the sand and just watched this sunset, and it was the most amazing experience. I felt myself in the sunset. It was just like pure connection. Can you see what I'm saying? I had pure connection, a direct reflection with the sunset. So it's not just with people, okay? Sometimes you know something's going to happen, right? That's a direct reflection. And you're like, I knew that was going to happen. You felt it in yourself. We call that the intuition. You felt it in yourself, and then it got reflected in the story, and it mirrored back what you already felt, and you go, I knew that was going to happen. And how does that feel when you know something was going to happen and it happened? You feel yourself in whatever happened. You see, it's a direct reflection. You feel yourself in that. The disowned part, you do not feel. You feel that that's not part of you. The own part, or the direct reflection, or the true reflection, is where you feel yourself in whatever is being reflected. In other words, you feel one with it. You feel like you're showing up in the other person. And you experience this all the time. You experience this with men and men, women and women. It doesn't have to be romantic. Don't take this just as a romantic love. It is a direct reflection. And you just go, and you feel this sometimes with somebody. You're like, I just have this amazing, bless you, amazing connection with this person. And it's fucking eternal, man. It's a connection you have with that person forever, whether they're alive or not. I remember, there's people from the past that I've had really strong connections with, like close friends, whether they're close friends or relationships. I've had really strong sense of connection, right? And that's what a direct reflection is when you see each other, when the other person sees themselves in me and I see myself in them. It's a direct reflection. It's a really strong connection. There's a friend of mine who I have a very strong connection with, and I haven't seen her for years. Like, I don't know, 7, 10, 15, I don't know, 8, 12 years, something like that. So like a long time I haven't even seen her. I don't see them, I don't really hear from them. And there was one morning where I just got up and I felt that she just had a baby. Because the connection was still there. Can you see what I'm saying? Now, it doesn't mean it's romantic. There's a sense of connection with that person. Okay? In other words, that person the mirror is direct. Okay? Then I get a message the next day from her mum, sending a message to everyone, hey, my daughter just had a baby, da, da, da. I was like, fuck, I knew it. So I said, what time? And it was the time I jumped up. I said, what time did she have the baby? She was thinking, oh, well, that's a weird question. So response. It was at, 12 or whatever it was in the middle of the night. I was like, wow, I just woke up and felt it. Can you see what I'm saying? So you find that direct reflection with environments. You find it in your circumstances. You see it in your intuition. The intuition plays something out. You feel it, and then you see the signpost, and you're like, oh yeah, I feel it. It's gonna, like, I know this is gonna happen. That's when your intuition becomes stronger. You have you intuit something. You have intuition, and then you know, something comes out in your reflection, and then you feel a connection, a direct connection with that thing, and you're like, oh, I know this is gonna happen for sure now. Can you see? Because the mirror went, this is going to happen. Now, if you don't go to your head and go, oh, how's it going to happen? You just know now. You're like, I know it's going to happen. The same thing. Okay? When I'm speaking on stage, okay? When I go up on stage and speak, when I'm sitting here and speaking to you, I have to empty myself. Fuck me if I don't. Like, seriously, like, there will be nothing. You're like, I can't explain it to you. There's been times where I have been on stage, maybe once I can recall, where I was doing an intuitive warrior, when I just got into the pattern of, I know what to say, I know what the next line is, and I started to take over and start to speak myself. Whoa. In the reflection, all these parts of myself came up and were like, that wasn't really that good. I've heard you're amazing. And I was just like, what? And like, I didn't even notice I was doing it, and then I had to sit with it, and I was like, what was that about? Like, people going, yeah, look, I didn't find you really authentic, and people would email me and say, look, I didn't really find you an authentic person, and you know, I wanted to sign up to your next program, the WTF, but I'm not going to because I just don't feel you're an authentic person, and I want to tell you that. That's my, now, I had a reaction to that. I was like, whoa, like, not a, well, fuck you, it was just more of a, whoa, like a stab in the heart kind of thing. It was just like, and it affected me. And I was like, whoa, this is definitely a reflection. What's this about? And I would sit with it. And I would notice that I got up on stage, and I remember, and I would go back to the moment, and I stayed present. You see, if I went into reaction, you're gone. I stayed present with it. And I remember getting up, just before getting up on stage, Jamie was about to introduce me, and he goes, good luck, da-da-da-da. And I said, it's in the bag, I got it. I was so fucking confident. And I was like, where did that confidence come from? And I went back and sat with it, and I was like, I've done the intuitive warrior so many times, I just got up there now, and it's become like I've become a puppet. And I'm just like, I'm not one with it anymore. It's become like, well, I just follow the script now. And I was like, whoa. And I realized the power then, wow, I really have to be completely empty and be speaking as though I'm speaking it for the first time. And when you are empty, you are speaking it for the very first time. You are. It feels like you are. Now, I know as you speak it, you feel like, oh yeah, I've said this, but it feels like you're saying it in a completely different way. It's like when you're making love with somebody. You know, you've done that position probably hundreds or thousands of times, the same position, but it feels like it's new. Who knows what I'm talking about? These are the people who have good sex lives. The ones who just put their hands up. If it becomes repetitive, now let's just go through the motions. Why is it always the women that laugh when I talk about that stuff? Does that make sense? If it becomes repetitive, it's the same as when I'm speaking. So here's the thing. Listen to me very carefully. When I get up on stage, all right, the first thing I do is I empty myself. When I empty myself, I become like a mirror. A pure mirror. So when I get up on stage, I begin to speak from the emptiness, not from the known, but from the unknown. And when I'm starting to speak from the unknown, I become a complete mirror. Because I'm speaking from one. You see, from complete the moments. That way, then everyone is reflecting their own mirror in me. That's why when I get up on stage, or when I said to you this morning, there's 30 people here, there's 30 different versions of what's actually being said here. And then you know what happens? When I get off stage, a lot of people go, it felt like you were talking to me. Do you understand? It felt like I was listening and you were just talking directly to me. Why? Because they saw themselves in me. And I saw myself in them. Does that make sense? It's a direct reflection. And they go, it feels like I knew this, and it's just like, oh my God, thank you for someone else who knows this. Like, it's like we had this deep connection. Sometimes the logical mind comes in and someone goes, I think I'm in love with you. Because they experience, that's what happens. Sometimes when you experience a direct reflection, even with a guy and a guy, and then, or a girl and a girl could be not gay, she could be completely straight, but then she has a direct reflection with another woman, she thinks, oh my God, I'm a lesbian. Not, you know, she may be or she may not be, and that's none of my business, but what I'm saying is some people confuse it as romantic love. Now, great, if you have a direct reflection and you're having a romantic love with someone, wow, you're going to have an amazing relationship. Great. Okay, but sometimes, you know, a guy might have a deep connection with another guy and they think, well, maybe I'm gay. I've had people in my OMGs come up and go, I don't know if I'm gay or what. And they went and explored it. Seriously, they went and explored it and they came back to me and go, I'm definitely not gay. I was like, you explored it? And he went, yeah, I had to. You know, anyway, long story. So sometimes the love, because it's a very profound love, because it's a profound love because you're seeing yourself in the other person. It's a deep connection. Okay, so that's another example. When I write, I was going to say horoscopes, my sister does that. When I write the truth of the days, or let's go look at my sister writes intuitive horoscopes. Do you know how many people come back and go, oh my God, how did you know that was going in my life? You were talking to me. You were talking directly to me. How many times people say that? Gaz gets it more on the horoscopes than I do on the truth of the days. But I get it on the truth of the days too. People come back to me and go, it's like you were talking to me. It's a direct reflection. It's like when the mirror is pure and you get to reflect yourself as the one. And that's why you feel like you see yourself in them. But it's still not the complete one. It is one step closer to the complete reflection. There's a difference between the direct reflection and a complete reflection, which I will talk about in a moment. Microphone?
Just a question.
Yeah.
I think there are times when I feel like I'm in love, but there's no one there. So it's just complete sense of feeling of being in love. What would that fall under?
In love with yourself?
Just in love. Like I can't say that it's me with me. It's just a total sense of being in love. And it's almost like a physical sense too. Like
I know what you're talking about. I'm just trying to see in which category it fits in. Because there's times where I've just felt like it's when I'm really present and it just feels just huge amounts of love and just expansion and openness, and you're just like, whoa. Yeah, that will fall into the complete reflection. Okay, so because the reflection's still the feeling, so there's a moment where you're experiencing complete reflection. Yeah, exactly right. And sometimes the power is way too strong. Like it's because you still think it's the body, you still have the perception of being this body, so you can't contain the power because you think the body's got to contain the power. It's like fitting the whole ocean into the glass. If you can't fit the whole ocean into this glass, but if you know you're not the glass, suddenly you can fit the whole ocean into your awareness.
Well, that's what's interesting, because in a lot of those moments, I just have this massive surge of feelings, and I can feel myself tearing up. But it's not like a sad tearing up; it's just like an overjoyed.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that's what that is still kind of inside.
Yeah, but once you can contain, and contain's not the right word. Once you can grasp that power, you won't tear up anymore.
Or harness it.
Yeah, once you harness it, that's probably the best word. Once you harness, there won't be those tears. The tears of inspiration only come because you don't know how to contain it. You know, that's really interesting. Really. Yeah, because, yeah. I remember once, you guys, some of you guys know John DiMartini. I used to promote. Now, John gets up on stage quite a lot, and he has moments of inspiration, right? And in those moments of inspiration, he's pretty much sobbing. And who's seen John speak? So he's a really inspirational speaker. He's an amazing speaker, And when he connects, he has his moments where just he's tearing up. And I remember my mum once went up to him and she says, "Why are you crying for?" And he goes, "It's a tear of inspiration." She's like, "No, it's a tear of pain. Stop crying." Yeah, my mum would go up to all the speakers I would promote and, you know, tell him out. Once she goes, "Send Robert to me." Robert Scheinfeld was I was like, "Oh, jeez, you know, fuck, Mum, can you stop?" You know, and I had like a lot of power. You know, I was like, I'm not getting involved. She goes to Gaz, "You go get Robert for me. Tell him to come to my house." And so I was like, and I was like, "You know what, Gaz, I'm not coming. If Robert wants to go, then fine, but I'm not coming." You know, so I wouldn't go. So Robert would go there, and Robert was interested in what my mum had to say, and you know, my mum had some words with him, and my mum says to him, I wasn't there, but I heard that my mum sat him down and said, "Your grandfather has a message for you." And she starts telling him the message, and she says to him, "There's not just phase 1, phase 2, there's phase 3. Phase 3. And I was like, "Oh, here we go, Mum fucking know-it-all," and you know, probably Robert thinks she's an idiot, and you know, because I had power in Robert. And then it was only recently I spoke to Robert when I was in America. I was messaging him for his birthday, and he goes, "Tell your mum I love to see her because she'll be very proud of where I've got to. Phase 3, you know?" And yeah, anyway. But so that's my mum. You know, she would go, I would promote these speakers, and she was like, "Tell them to come see me." That's just oh, shit. Who had the microphone before I got distracted with stories?
I can summarise with your experiences, and sometimes when I meditate...
I didn't hear that. Say it again.
Oh, I can summarise with her experiences, and sometimes when I meditate in large groups of people, I found it the first time I came to the WTF, and yeah, it makes me want to cry, but it's a really beautiful feeling. It's not sad at all. It's really quite, it's wonderful. It's nice. But when you say you need to learn how to contain it, what does that mean? Like, and I don't know, like it's kind of nice. I don't really want to.
Contain is not the right word, because it can't be contained because it's infinite, right?
Yeah.
That's why I corrected myself and said you can't contain it. Like I spoke about last month when we were speaking about love, as you expand, what's actually expanding is not your power, because your power is already expanded. Your awareness expands, and you become aware of your expanded self, and it continues to expand, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, if you are a drop of the ocean, then that's how much you are, okay? Then whatever you put in that drop is going to affect it, okay? So you have not much power. You know, you piss in that glass, for example, it's going to affect it. But as you expand your awareness and become aware that who you actually are is more and more of the ocean, then suddenly the little fear that you have, the little piss that you drop, it doesn't affect it. Can you see? It's not like the fear goes away, it's just the fear becomes irrelevant. You know, for as long as you are experiencing yourself in the physical being, you're going to experience some form of fear, but it becomes irrelevant. The fear dissipates because your awareness becomes more and more expanded. So when you have a moment where you kind of just open up and feel the entire ocean, but your awareness is only this small, you will you feel like I can't contain it.
So it's just overwhelming.
It isn't overwhelming.
Oh, okay.
Because you had a moment of openness.
Okay.
You know, I've had moments like that where I've had a moment of complete openness and just felt the power, and when I was feeling the power, I was fine. You know, I was like, it was just like, you know, it was amazing. But the moment, I don't know, afterwards I just started crying. It was just like that, and then I was just, and I just started to cry. It's like a child that kind of falls over, but it's not a big deal. I felt like that. I felt like, because it was just something new. It was something, it was new but familiar at the same time. It felt familiar, but it was something new in my experience. And when a child falls over for the first time, although nothing actually happened, because it's a new experience, you're like, oh, and you start to kind of cry. So that's when I've experienced the tears that came out from, you know, experiencing the essence of who you are. And again, you're only experiencing, you're not experiencing the whole thing. You can't contain in this body. Your awareness becomes more and more, and then you start to realize that you're infinite. And as you start to, and again, it's in the feeling realizes it's infinite. Then you become not the body connecting to the feeling, then you become the feeling moving the body. And when you're the feeling move the body, there's no fear. There's no fear. And the amazing thing is you don't even notice the fear going away. Your life starts to change. My life started to change. I started to expand, and I started to have more direct reflections of my expansion. But I didn't realize I was no longer afraid anymore. There has to be something that comes in my reflection that will go, hey, look at this, you used to be afraid. Somebody might ask me the question, or I'm sharing a journey with someone else, and then I notice they're afraid. And then I'll be like, oh my God, I used to be afraid. So sometimes the reflection will show you what you used to be. And I'll be like, but I'm not feeling like that anymore. Some of you would have, all of you would experience that. You experience suddenly you're experiencing your indirections indirect reflections, sorry. You experience your indirect reflections, the parts of yourself that you disowned, and the moment it becomes owned, you don't even realize you owned it. You don't realize it. I'll just let you know now. But what happens is the reflection will come again, and you notice that you don't have a reaction towards it. And it's almost as part of you is feeling like, well, I feel bad, I should be reacting to this. But there's no more reaction. Who knows what I'm talking about? Yeah, all of you know what I'm talking about. You see, so you've had moments of that, and you're just like, well, because normally you would react. So then that reflection is just showing you your expansion. Sometimes you use, because like I said, you just don't notice it. It's like your hair growing. You don't notice your hair growing. Not every day you don't notice it. It's not like you get up and go, oh my God, it grew 1 millimeter today. You do not recognize that. But over time, you'll go, oh wow, that's really grown. And same as putting weight on or losing weight. You don't really recognize it. But over time, you're like, oh yeah, there's a little bulge there. If I wasn't there before, I'm sure of it, for example. So that is the direct reflection, and I'm trying to give you as many examples of that as I can. It's when you are experiencing yourself in another person, environment, your experience of your circumstances. You notice your expansion, and suddenly, it's not like your financial situation may have changed. It may, but it may not have. It may have even been worse. It's not about how that is. Your perception is now cleansed. But the moment you you own the part of you that you disowned, you're no longer looking through perception. The perception has been taken off. The glasses of how you see this world, whether it's pink or blue, that's taken off. So then you see it for what it is, and therefore then you see yourself in that circumstance, and then suddenly you feel expanded, even, or you feel like you have options, even though in your financial situation there may be no options. But in most cases, I will say, your circumstances will change. How you see your circumstances change. So suddenly, if you had no money, then you have money. If you're feeling unhealthy about something, you become healthy. Your relationship was a struggle, it becomes a non-struggle. Does that make sense? Yeah. All right. Aircon's definitely not working, eh? So, any questions or comments, or does anyone want to share with me how they feel about the direct reflections? I just want to see if you've grasped the direct. We've spoke about this morning the indirect. Now we're speaking about the direct. Can you see the difference? Who can tell me what the difference between the indirect reflection and the direct reflection is? In the most simplest form. Microphone.
One you've owned and one you haven't owned. You've disowned.
Yep. One is disowned, and when it's disowned, you don't see that you have it. It's very simple. That's what it means. Disowned means I don't have that. I don't have that positive. I don't have that negative. Very simple. And the other one, you owned. So you experienced the direct reflection. Who can give me another example of a direct reflection? I've strained my brain trying to give you as many references, microphone, as many references as I can. What is another example or reference point that we can talk about when you're having an experience of a direct reflection?
I'm not 100% sure about this one, but the first thought that came when you started talking about this is when a child is born.
Yep.
And in that sense, like, and even I think even in animals, most animals, when they see like a baby, there will be like a certain respect or certain behavior towards it. The same thing with a child. There's a sense of it's just a sense. Yeah. And whether it's and I think of it as pureness, but I also think of it that's the purity in us. That's right. Being reflected in them.
That's right.
So
that's exactly right. So when a child is born, it's born with in other words, the mirror is clean. So then you see your pureness in them. Same as when I'm saying when I'm speaking, I have to empty myself. When I empty myself, I wipe my mirror, and then I get up on stage. So then people see themselves in me, or they see themselves in the child. It's exactly another direct reflection. So when a child is born, you know, or you see a little puppy, you're like, oh, little puppy, you know, you're so beautiful, you know. You're seeing your purity in that. And then as the child grows, then it will start to reflect different things.
I don't want to throw us off track, but I've had one question, and maybe it'll come back later. But if the infinite knew itself as the infinite, then why would it need to know itself as the finite to be able to come back to the infinite?
It doesn't need to know itself, it's a finite. It's just one of the effects of separation. To know so the infinite did not come here, and people keep getting confused with that. The infinite did not come here because it needs to experience what finite is. Although that would be cool, right?
But the road, my thought is that it became infinite to know itself as, sorry, it became finite to know itself as infinite.
But the thing is, so then there's two infinites.
Yes.
This is why, you know, I started the morning with this, because if you can grasp what I said this morning, a lot of this will just start to go click, click. The one infinite, you as the one infinite being manifested a part of yourself to form. So the moment you manifested it to form, you know, I mean through billions of parts, through separation, then each part is reflecting a different part of yourself, right? But why did it do that? We spoke about this in love, I believe. Why did it do that? Because it came here to experience itself with other infinite beings. Like I said to you in the WTF, the one infinite energy, the one thing it can never have, as much as it's infinite, and it can have it, and that's why we're having it right now, but the reason why it can never have it in infinite land is because there can only be one infinite. The one thing the infinite being cannot have is to play a game with another infinite being. Because the moment it plays a game with another infinite being, it's no longer infinite. Unless it manifests itself through a mirror, through a physical world, to perceive that it is separate. Then if each part of itself realizes who it is, then that part becomes infinite. Let me take this a little bit deeper. Sometimes you can connect to the feeling, but it's about willing to draw it out. So let's review what I just said, and I'll pick it up again. As an infinite being, the one thing an infinite being cannot have is another infinite being. So in the infinite land. But of course it can. It can manifest other infinite beings. So how would it manifest other infinite beings? Well, it would have to manifest a part of itself to be two, duality, which is the billions of parts that I'm talking about. Two, right? Now, the two become disowned parts because they're not owned. The two reflect each other as disowned parts. But when these two own each other's parts, which is really owning its parts of itself, then the two waves rise, and the two waves realize and look at each other, and they no longer see another wave, they see an ocean. But there's only one ocean. There's two waves, but there's only one ocean. Now the waves recognize that they are no longer waves, they are the ocean, ocean being infinite source. So then you realize that I am no longer this body connecting to the feelings, I am the infinite feeling moving this body. I am no longer this drop of the ocean, I am the ocean moving the feeling. One question that I'm going to be leaving with you this afternoon for you to ponder, the question of the month that I'm leaving with you, is for you to continuously question yourself. And it's not a question, it's a request. It's more of a request. And the request is of yourself to show me, and this is what you're asking yourself, show me the feeling that moves this body. Show me who I am as the infinite feeling that moves this body. You can write that down if you want. Okay, this is the question. The question of the month. Show me who I am as the infinite feeling that moves this body. So ultimately what happens is this particle, this part is Amir Zogi, right? That's the identity, all right? Amir Zogi is reflecting different things for different people. But as this part, all right, goes deeper within itself and realizes it's not this part, it is the ocean or the formless manifesting itself into this part. Then I can then see the ocean or the formless manifesting myself into that part. Okay? This is, by the way, what I'm describing here is complete love, which is the unconditional, infinite, universal love we spoke about last month. In this case now, it's the two waves that have risen, and now they see above the ocean, but they no longer see the other wave. I see myself as the one, and when I see myself as the one, I can see myself as the one that is coming through this wave. And then through that wave, I look back at myself as the one. I'm describing to you the deepest form of universal unconditional love. I see myself when I've claimed all my disowned parts, when I've owned all my disowned parts, then I can become complete. And when I feel whole and complete, in other words, I feel infinite. The feeling in me, it feels expanded, it feels infinite. Then I can see myself as the one in another form. And through that form, I can look back at myself and see myself as the one. In other words, the two oceans rise up above the ocean, and this wave, the two waves rise up above the ocean. This wave sees this wave no longer as the wave, it sees it as the ocean. And then it looks back at itself as no longer a wave, but as the ocean. The two waves rise up, and they now see an ocean, one ocean. What that means, if you want me to dumb it down, it means there will be two infinite beings in a finite world. Remember, the one thing an infinite being could not have. You know how many times I've said this? Just in case you're like, I've heard this before. You know how many times I've said it before it started to drop in? It's the one seed that my mother gave me. The one little seed that she implanted. She gave me one paragraph. She wrote it down to me. She goes, this is the truth. Now take this seed and see what comes out of it. One seed. She said to me in the beginning, there was one infinite ocean. One infinite energy, sorry. Now one infinite energy manifested itself into billions of parts through its own imagination. And each part then became separate. You know, I mean, and I don't remember the rest. There was another 2 or 3 sentences. She's written this down. This one little statement, I have gone and studied this one little thing, studied it in myself. What does that mean? And I just couldn't get out of my head anymore. I just kept saying it and saying it. So this is why every month I keep saying the same thing about that statement. Because you haven't yet grasped why. You know why you're here. You know the answer, I love. But why? Do you really fucking know why you're here? Because if you really knew why you're here, you would really know who you are. And if you really knew who you are, then you will let the feeling out. Most people just don't let the feeling out. So to answer your question, I know I've gone around a big circle, but sometimes it has to happen that way. To answer your question, it is, so there's two infinite beings. When you become the one, and I become the one, now there's two infinite beings. Now those two infinite beings are the same ocean, but the experience is now two infinite beings through a finite world. Now we get to play. Now we get to love. Do you understand? Love between two forms. That's impossible. The love that's infinite, unconditional, universal love, it's impossible between two forms. Unless it's the same ocean. Infinite means it is only one. So you cannot love another form. The only way you can love another form is if you're loving yourself as the one that's showing up in another form. That is the complete reflection of love. In other words, when you feel complete, you then manifest or reflect yourself as the complete love in other forms. Microphone.
And when you say see, is that the feeling? Is it through the feeling?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, you see the little disguise here, you know, but you don't see that. And the little disguise, its role might be to come up to you and go, Amir, you're a fucking idiot, da 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 da, but you're just seeing the hand that is moving the puppet, but you understand that its role is to do something, but you're no longer having a reaction. And you're like looking at it and you kind of like, you know, there's nothing to do but smile and go, I know you, yeah, you know, because you're seeing yourself. But their role is to frighten you and, you know, I'm going to take action against you. I'm going to do, but you're like, cheeky little motherfucker, you know, kind of thing. I'm just putting some effects to this just to make it a little bit funny. But that's what it becomes like. The role doesn't mean, you know, now, you know, she's still got her role, right? But because it's no longer reflecting, you know, maybe her role is to make everyone afraid, to make everyone feel small. For example, it doesn't, because I don't feel small, it no longer plays that reflection. So all I see is love moving this body. But in the story, everyone's like, oh my God, be afraid. And then you're like, you know, it's just, that kind of sounded evil, didn't it? That's the complete love. I mean, I talk about this all the time. I talk about in the forms of relationship when I talk about it in the WTF. When you love yourself as the one. In other words, when you know yourself, you no longer need to love yourself, you become love. Then you begin to reflect yourself as the one, but in other forms. So for example, if Brady and I are working together for something, I would never go up to Brady and ask for something of Brady. I would ask myself in Brady. Do you understand? You don't go up to the bank and ask for a loan. You ask yourself in the form of the bank manager. You know how many times my staff come up to me and go, I want a pay rise? Go, you're asking the wrong person. At first they look at me and go, who else would I ask? How about yourself? And they're like, but how would you know that I've asked? Because a feeling that is you will come in me, and it will come in the form of my intuition. It says, hey Amir, Melanie needs a pay rise. Increase the pay to this. And one who follows a feeling because the feeling said so, not because Melanie said so. I always follow the feeling. And guess what? If I don't follow the feeling will do it anyway. But I didn't have a choice. But when you didn't have a choice to doing it, you don't expand. When the more you follow the feeling, the more you expand. I'll come to you in a moment. Does that make sense? You see this in my training with my team all the time. I already decided what needs to happen. The feelings come up. But I want their feeling to come up so they can decide to follow their feeling. Does that make sense? So I get my team around and I go, hey guys, like, I'm not really feeling to be speaking and doing the WTF anymore. And in the business model, you require that, right? In the business model. But, you know, it's not really based on a business model, all right? But, so the point is I come and say something and then I make a decision through them to go, yeah, that feels true, Zogi. Yep. Which in the story is fucking crazy because it means they're making no money. Right, Rach? And I want them to be able to decide. I want them to, because I know it's true. But if it's true for me, I don't need to persuade them. I ask them the question, what feels true for you? And they go, it feels true for us to not do it as well. Did I persuade them? No, because I already decided inside. So if Melanie wanted to ask for a pay rise, you know, she would ask herself. She would decide upon herself that she wants a pay rise, right? Then she would do nothing about it unless the feeling said, go ask Amir now. But if the feeling didn't come to go ask Amir, you do nothing, absolutely nothing. No fucking responsibility.
So just to expand on that from a personal experience, so there's moments when I have an intuition when I'm having a conversation with someone, especially like when I'm like coaching with someone. I'm in a zone and I'm just completely present.
You're judging someone?
No, coaching.
Coaching, sorry.
So, and I just have an intuition and I just ask them a question and it's like I've read their mind.
Yeah.
So in that moment, they've asked themselves a question. I've felt it through them. Is that what's happening there?
From their perspective, yes. But everything comes down to your perspective. Do you know what I mean? Like, see, this, it's very you will lose yourself if you're trying to go, well, I'm picking up on, like, you're creating.
It's not something I think about. It's just something just comes straight
it's a
out.
good question, but I just want to make it very clear. Everything is a mirror of you. So the mirror has no power. Do you understand? But in what you're reflecting power into this person to show up and ask this question. So in other words, in truth, you're the one asking the question through them. Do you understand? But then it goes same way for that person. But that's when you lose yourself. Because that's when you lose yourself and you forget who is the, if you look at yourself in the mirror, like I said to you, you forget which one is real. If you stay in front of the mirror long enough, you will forget which one is the real part. If you be completely still. Who's been in the meditation and been completely still and they forget where their body is situated? Right? So same thing. You go sit in front of the mirror and don't move, just be completely still. You will lose yourself in the mirror. You'll forget which is the one reflecting and which is the one being reflected. So don't try to go, well, they had the no, you put your power into them to ask this question so that you can experience something in your own reflection and go, wow, I knew that feeling was real, or whatever it was you're reflecting. Does that make sense? So in other words, to give you another example, I just put my power into you to come through the form of your question. And the question arose, and then the answer comes, and I think I'm answering your question, but really I'm answering my own. So it becomes a mind fuck if you try to work it out for the reflected. Just understand, this physical, even this body, you know, your body there, your body here, this is the reflected. The feeling is the part that's reflecting. So the physical is the reflected, even this body. This is physical. It's reflected as part of the shadow. It's the feeling that's infinite. The physical is never infinite. You become the feeling that moves this body. That's why I said, you ask yourself this question over and over again, and you will be as present as you can, because the answer will come. Well, maybe not the answer, but the experience. It will show you. Show me who I am as the infinite source that moves this body. Show me who I am as the infinite energy. Show me who I am as the feeling that moves this body. Ask yourself that question over and over again for the next 3 months, 6 months, the next however long you're an OMG. Show me who I am as the feeling that is moving this body. Wow, what a question. What a question. I mean, can you guys feel the power in that question? Show me who I am as the feeling, or if you like, whatever word you want to have for it. Show me who I am as the one that moves this feeling. Sorry. Show me who I am as the one energy that moves this body. Because that's where you ultimately realize, you'll get to a point where you realize, I'm not this body, I am the feeling that moves this body. I am not this drop, I am the ocean that moves this drop. And then when you realize who you are that is moving this body, you'll start to see a direct or a complete reflection of yourself in other bodies. It's a lot of work. I mean, you know, it's probably 3 to 5 years work. Don't think it's going to be over a month. You keep asking that question. Everything that I'm sharing with you is things that took me a good 3 to 5 years. But I wasn't so, I would get stuck in the story quite a lot. I would experience a reflection, but then I would I know it's a reflection, but I've got to go do something about it. I've got to go put cream on my face that has a rash in the mirror. It took me a while before I went, all right, it ain't working, sit the fuck down, do nothing except for the feeling. It took me a while. Once I started to follow the feeling, everything happened quickly after that. But it took me a while before I started to go, nothing's real but this feeling. That's why I say love is all there is. Everything else is a judgment of what is. Or a John DeMartini quote. Love is all there is. All else is an illusion, he says. Microphone.
Although I know this has been said a million times, it just brings you right back to the human being versus the human doing. And I think I've really have gotten that in the last week, is just to, I've always been a very big doer. And, obviously all this stuff, I've always wanted to go out and kind of do something about it. But I finally got it just to sit still and let it come to me versus running around trying to figure it out. I think that's really what the human being ultimately boils down to. Yeah,
well, the thing is, the being part is the part of you that's in this moment. The doing part is a part of you that goes to the past and future, and it's trying to get somewhere. The being part is this in this moment. But when you are being, then the being part will move you when you're doing. It's no longer you doing, chasing the shadow. It's you, one with your shadow, no shadow behind you, then you walk, but the sun is right above you the whole way. That's when the feeling is moving you. That is the complete reflection. So the complete reflection is the two waves looking at each other and no longer seeing two waves, but seeing an ocean. Does that make sense? The two waves no longer see two waves or separate waves. One wave looks at the other wave, and the other wave looks at the other wave, and they see one ocean. And who's the ocean? It's the wave. There's only one. So, we've spoken about the indirect reflection, we've spoken about the direct reflection, we've spoken about the complete reflection. After lunch, I'm going to quickly recap those again, just to make sure it sinks in. As you probably know, my teaching style is always to tell you what I'm about to tell you, then to tell you it, and then to tell you what I just told you. That way I get to tell it to you 3 times. So it actually sinks in. But you won't even know me doing that. Okay? Microphone?
Before we stop on this question, could you just talk about when it's not a reflection at all, when there's no charge? Like they're just an extra in your movie, they're not... You can see something happening that doesn't cause any anger or any emotion. It's just neutral. That's
Who's
not...
ever experienced someone dying and it didn't make you have any experience? Like you saw in the news, maybe someone close to you even. Who's ever experienced like that? Everyone's putting their hand up. Okay? That's when it's still supportive for that story to be part of your story, but it's not a mirror anymore. Okay? We know it's an indirect reflection, or the reflection of your disowned parts. When we said that the first thing that we said is it's causing you to have a reaction. So if it's not causing a reaction, it's more of an observation rather than a reaction. And you observe that, look at that, da-da-da-da-da, but you're not having a reaction. So it's just part of your, what do you call it, the backdrop in a movie, or when you're on stage, it's part of the backdrop, like that backdrop is required for some of the experiences that you're going to have, for some of the reactions, other things. Does that make sense? So it's just part of the extras of your movie. You know, you don't want to walk out and suddenly there's no one else here. Because the truth is, it's only you here. You, as the infinite, there's only one, right? But you've made all these different parts, you know? I'm about to take a trip next month to Italy. I don't want to go to Italy and there's no one there. I want to see all the Italians and talk Italian, and you know?
I used to sometimes think, well, maybe I had no emotion, I wasn't compassionate, but obviously I just didn't have a charge there.
It's very common when someone first takes it on this path, you know, and it's not when someone takes this path, happens to people all the time. But then they have the voice comes and goes, how dare you not have a reaction to that, or, you know, and then beats themselves up. So, but as you start to become aware, you're like, well, I don't have a reaction, and so therefore you stay neutral about it. But the thing is, in that neutrality, you can actually experience the joy of what you're seeing. So you can still the oneness, the perfection, you're still experiencing the all connection, but you know, but in the story, because you haven't labeled it as positive or negative, you experience the positive and negative together, which is experiencing love. But if someone has labeled it or judged it because it's a reaction, because they're not in the present moment, or because it's a disowned part, then they will have a reaction to that. You're reacting to the part of you that's disowned. Otherwise, there's nothing to react to.